Hey, it's Karyn Bryant for MMA Heat. It's time to talk about UFC on Fox 3. I'm joined by my good friend Steven Marrocco from MMA Junkie. And Steven, you were in the building in East Rutherford. Before we really get into the details, just overall, what was your feeling on the show?
A vortex of internet activity. It was very, very difficult to keep up on the show because there was basically no internet in the building. So I was doing play-by-play. It was, it was an East Coast crowd. They liked to boo a lot. They were very, very salty, as East Coast people tend to be, very up in your face. And they were just not having it when the guys were clinching for more than a couple seconds. They let them have it with some boos. So it was a tough crowd in a lot of ways, but they certainly got their money's worth at the end of the card when the main card actually set off.
Right. All right. Well, being an East Coast person, part of me takes offense and part of me goes, you're not 100% wrong.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, they're very passionate at the pre-fight press conference. I don't know whether it was a member of a guy from the press or a guy from the audience basically said, this fight between Jones and Rashad. He was just like, "Hey, that fight sucked." I mean, it's like.
I watched that. I remember that in the stream, and then Dana kept saying, "Well, this guy thought that fight sucked, but whatever." Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, I appreciate that. At least you know where you stand. So.
Right. All right. Well, speaking of standing, Pat Barry was not standing at the end of his fight with Lavar Johnson. He was taken out in the first round, and I don't want to say that was expected because I had actually picked Pat to win. I thought maybe he could be effective in chopping Lavar down and then landing some things. Pat showed some groundwork, wasn't able to finish him off. It looked like at one point he was going for the crucifix, didn't quite get it. Then he's trying for an Americana. Then he's doing this. He was trying a few things. Lavar didn't really show any ground game, but of course once he was able to get up and get Pat against the cage, it was the end of the show for him.
Yeah, tough fight. I'm sure Pat is kicking himself for where he was and having the fight pretty much won. It looked to me like that Kimura was really damaging Lavar's arm. From the cage side, it looked like he was grimacing really badly, and it looked like even if he had gotten out of that, that he was going to be damaged getting up. But surprisingly, he popped right back up and started throwing like it was nothing at all. Right. And then from there, I think just Pat got caught and overwhelmed, and that's the business.
Well, one thing is that people like to see the heavyweights in stand-up wars, and we don't see a lot of heavyweights with really, really great ground games. Frank Mir obviously has a very good ground game. Nogueira, yes. But I really thought Lavar really didn't show anything. No hip escapes, no movement, just kind of laid there. Yeah,
and he's basically going to have a real hard time when it comes to fighting guys with a real strong wrestling pedigree, a real strong submission pedigree, like you mentioned, Frank Mir. But like Pat, he's going to have to learn on the job essentially. Pat got thrown in with a lot of really tough competition early on in his career when he was mostly a kickboxer, and obviously we saw him struggle as a result of that. So I think Lavar is going to essentially have to get on the mat, put on the gi, start working as much as he can, because he's not going to be able to rely on those heavy hands when he gets higher up in the division.
And I would also like to see Pat maybe change camps.
Yeah, well, I think I think he tried. I think he tried his best to. I think he did one of the best things he could, which was go to Marty Morgan and the guys at Death Clutch, working out with a bunch of wrestlers in that room. I think he did the best he could, but when it comes to learning this game, you need more than 6 months, a year, 2 years, even before you're really not only just doing this stuff in the gym, but you're doing it in the fight when the lights are on and it really matters.
Right. Right. Anyway, Pat, one of the most likable guys in the show, so I hope that he stays around. I hope he doesn't get cut. I think he's fun to watch, and best of luck to Lavar. Now I do want to move on. I picked this fight correctly. Belcher Palhares, Wade and my friend Sam, they kind of looked at me nuts at the beginning of the fight when I said that. But, Alan Belcher had said all leading up to it that, yes, he was aware of and, yes, in fact, a little bit afraid of the leg locks and the ankles. And but just kept rolling. I mean, that fight was incredible. How close he came. I mean, most mortals would have probably tapped. But Alan kept his composure and finished him off with, basically it was a TKO. But, I mean, he knocked the dude out.
Yeah, he was not on this earth when the referee pulled him off.
So who did you have going into that one? Do you think Palhares was going to take it?
You know what? I was going back and forth. I definitely thought that it was bad news when it hit the ground.
Yeah.
But something told me that Allen might actually try to do a little sniping from distance and basically keep distance and pick him apart on the feet. That didn't happen at all. Rousimar closed the distance way too fast for him to do that. And then by then he was playing Rousimar's game. And, really all credit to him for surviving that, because it looked pretty darn painful at a couple of points.
Oh, for sure. And I don't know how it was in the room, for you, but sitting there just watching it, you're freaking out. And you couldn't hear Joe's call, obviously, but Joe was like freaking out and going, Allen, get up! Like, and it was one of those things, and I've seen some people say, oh man, I think Joe was totally biased for Belcher. I don't even think it's that so much as just everybody knows what that, you can kind of feel like, oh my God, what would that feel like to be in that leg lock? And I took it more of Joe, it was just like anybody that was in there against Palhares, he would have screamed, get up to save your knee. It was like that. I didn't think it was a, anti-Palhares call is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, it's, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, so he's going to go for the jiu-jitsu guy. But, it's, I think of the sensation you get when you twist the knee and when you twist the ankle. I've had knee stuff, and it's unpleasant. And when a guy is cranking on it like that, his technique is so flawless. As his trainer, his technique is absolutely flawless, and that's what allowed him to get so high. As essentially a specialist.
Yes.
Not really much of a mixed martial artist like. You don't see that many specialists anymore in this game.
Right.
And to be a specialist, you have to be rock solid in your technique, and that's what Rousimar was. And all credit to Allen for basically what he exposed is that when you go for a submission, you can get punched in the head.
Totally.
This is a fundamental truth of this game. You can go for the ankle lock, but you got to, as Allen very astutely pointed out, you can set it up. But there's going to be a couple moments where you're going to be exposed to punches, and that's
because your hands are now completely tied up, so now your head's wide open.
Exactly. So that's what Allen took advantage of. More power to him.
Right. Absolutely. Now, anybody you'd like to see Belcher fight next?
I think maybe I'm looking on the screen here. Maybe winner Bisping Boch. I think that might be the one, or maybe Lombard if he wins, or maybe winner of Munoz Weidman.
So you would put him right up there with Lombard and Stan and all those guys. You'll put him up there already. I think Rousimar had a lot of heat on him. Yeah.
I think that he's maybe 1 to 2 fights away.
Okay.
Given the fact that Silva needs new blood.
Right.
They could put him against Vitor, the winner of Vitor Vanderlei, but I'm not sure if they want to do a Vitor rematch so soon if Vitor wins. There's just a lot of possibilities there. I think fresh blood is good, and I think Allen maybe has 1 or 2 fights. Nice.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Koscheck and Hendricks. This was a split decision that went in Johny Hendricks' favor. Again, a very close fight. I had tweeted that, I'm thankful I'm not a judge. I don't know how it played out in the building, but I thought it was a very, very close call, and I can definitely understand how it went, Hendricks' way, but I could see how you could maybe make the argument, but I guess if you look at the fight metrics, Hendricks was definitely landing more than Koscheck was.
So who did you pick in that fight, and did you think that it was Koscheck or
I had picked Koscheck going into it, and I really, honestly, by the end, I was like, I thought it might be a draw. I couldn't clearly say one or the other, because even though I felt like Johny was landing things, and obviously you could see Koss's eye start to, not be good, and then Josh kind of turned it on and still had something going, but I just thought in much of it was just very close and very even. I'm not mad at the call. I could have seen it going either way, and I could have seen it going as a draw.
Yeah, I was conflicted about it too, and I was doing play-by-play, so I haven't actually had a chance to watch it again. I need to watch it again, but I remember at the time scoring that first round for Johny, and then thinking like midway through the second, I don't know if I was like, maybe I screwed that one up, because Koscheck, I think, landed some pretty significant strikes in the first round. Johny got that takedown, but Koss landed some good strikes. The second, I think, was a little bit more clear to John.
Yeah.
I think it's the third round that people are debating about.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was that third round that everybody disagreed with. The judge disagreed with.
Right.
Because it's a matter of what do you value more, that top control at the end, or maybe those heavy shots that Hendricks was landing.
Right.
I thought Koscheck was landing some pretty heavy shots in the third as well. I mean, they were trading pretty intensely.
Definitely.
I think that Hendricks had Koscheck wobbled.
Yes.
So that might be more significant, but I had Hendricks winning it by just a very thin margin.
Right.
It wasn't. I could have seen it going either way, and a lot of the fighters actually picked Koscheck,
right,
as opposed to Hendricks. I didn't, for what it's worth. That's what I observed. So I'm happy with either one, but I think Hendricks, squeaked it out.
Right. Well, and getting back to your reference about new blood in terms of Anderson, new blood in the welterweight. I mean, this is such a competitive division. It's kind of cool to see Johnny rise up there, though. I mean, Koss been there for a long time. So it is kind of cool to start throwing Hendricks in the mix now. I know there's talk that he'll get the title shot, but I mean, also there's the idea of the Kampman-Ellenberger winner facing Hendricks. I don't know what you like, what kind of matchups you like, or if you think he's really ready for a title shot yet.
No, I think that's a great fight, and I actually think that's the fight that'll probably end up happening because he, GSP coming back in November is, to me, a gamble. It's not nearly a definite. It's a best case scenario.
Yeah.
If his recovery goes swimmingly, so even if it is November, it could very well be 3 or 4 months down the line before Hendricks gets that fight. Now he says he's ready to improve, go back to the gym, work on his skills and stuff like that. But I have this gut feeling that the UFC is probably going to ask him to take a fight in the interim. It might be Ellenberger Kampman is the final hurdle for that title shot.
Yeah, I think so as well. Well, speaking of title shots, this man Nate Diaz apparently has these figures are great. So Nate apparently has earned the shot at Benson. Which I think is kind of tremendous. I mean, the talk was the other day when I was doing the weigh-in show on Fuel with Ben. The talk was that Frankie Edgar had just said, I don't know if I want to fight in August yet. I'm not sure I'm going to be ready. I'm not sure I want to do it in Denver. And it was actually sort of gold to be sitting right there with Ben when he heard that. His expression was kind of great. But I guess apparently in the post-fight, you were at the thing. Is it true that Dana said Nate has agreed to sit and wait? Is that the case? You were there.
Yeah. He's going to wait it out. There's another situation where he's going to be on the shelf for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think he's okay with that. If I were him, I'd wait for the big money.
Right. Well, and he got the bonus money last night,
got the bonus money. The 209 rests easy, I guess. So, he's the thing with him is that I really thought was interesting was, talking to him after the Gray Maynard fight. He lost the fight, so his mental state was a little bit different, but he was miserable at lightweight. He was just like, I want to eat, I want to live a normal life. I want to, do all these things.
Right.
And that's when he went up to welterweight. He found welterweight wasn't so great.
Right.
Now he's back to lightweight, and his physical body, it's a huge asset. Against these lightweights.
Well, absolutely, and I had a conversation with him about that because he was saying before when he was eating and he was fighting at welterweight, he would eat the wrong things. He would eat too much bread, and fill up on the wrong things, and it wasn't really fueling his body properly. And now he's gluten-free and does all this stuff, and so I think not only does he make the weight easier than he used to at 155 because it's not as much of an issue, but I think there's just all kinds of things are firing a lot better for him because of the right eating. And I feel like, this guy is just really coming to his own. And it's funny because before, doing some of the research before the show the other day, and, you're watching old fights. And it's so funny because you watch the Gomi fight and Joe's going, oh, my God, this is the fight of Nate Diaz's life. He's never looked better. Cut to the Cerrone fight. Oh, my God, he's never looked better. It's the fight of his life. And the truth of it is up until those points, that was the truth. And this guy just keeps getting better and better. And I feel like he's really not only comfortable with his skill set, but also comfortable with, where he is, who he is, the the whole thing. He's more comfortable with the media now. I feel like he's just kind of like enjoying it a little bit more. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but when he's fighting, it drives me a little crazy sometimes when he drops his hands and, whatever. It makes me nervous that he's going to get tagged. But at the same time, when he's doing that, I go, oh my God, that's when he's totally in the zone. And that's when he gets ridiculously dangerous.
Exactly. And it's what makes him it's what makes him a Diaz.
Yeah.
It's what makes him a potential star.
Yeah.
His brother is famous for the same thing, that sort of irreverent, approach to like when he hit himself, he's crazy for that. And then he kicked Jim in the face. I mean, the audience went crazy for this stuff.
I bet, yeah.
Sets him apart. This is what makes him a compelling character.
Yeah.
Miller is a great fighter.
Yes.
A really technical, great fighter, but he doesn't have that X factor that makes him a real draw. And I think that these physical characteristics are going to really help him against a guy like Bendo or Frankie. Although I gotta think with the wrestling, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I would not be surprised if the fight ended up looking a lot like his earlier fights with Clay Guida and with Joe Stevenson.
Right.
Although I thought that that's what was going to happen with Miller,
and
Miller seemed outsized.
But I think so too, and I also think that Benson was able to take Miller down. Benson is a very, very strong physical guy, so I agree with you that is going to be a very compelling challenge for Nate to face, and that physicality of Ben is that's going to be a big factor. I can't even find the right word, but that's going to be a big factor.
No, it is. It really is. And actually, when you look at like the fight between Nate and Gray, Gray was able to get inside and negate that reach advantage and really work. So it's not like this insurmountable thing. But you're right that Ben Henderson's got this physicality, this wrestling physicality, and he also got these really long, fast legs that I think are actually going to come into play during the fight. And I think it's just going to be a really tough fight for Nate. I don't know. I don't know if I can pick against Bendo in that fight, but we'll see.
Well, and I clearly thought that Ben beat Frankie Edgar, so I don't know how you felt about that one.
Ben, I scored it for Ben. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. The controversy, it just seems to follow with all of these things.
Right.
It doesn't matter, what ends up happening, and the margins are becoming so thin with these guys because they're all so amazingly technical.
Yeah.
And becoming this, this game of inches right now.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I thought it was a fun show. I'm not sure on all the ratings yet and all that stuff, but I thought it was enjoyable. Next up for me, I'm actually going down to see Nick Diaz.
At
the JITS tournament. I'm going to interview him for Fuel. I'm lined up to do that, so let's hope he's in the mood to talk. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see. And Braulio Estima is nobody to be taken lightly. The guy's amazing. So it's going to be fun to see Nick, and it'll be interesting. I'll talk to him and see if he's coming back. But if you hear from Nate about Nick, he's like, look, my brother's busy. He's got a life. He's got other stuff going on. It's not, the whole world for Nate, for Nick is not all about the octagon, apparently. So,
which I think is actually good in many ways.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the big heavyweight show, and that's the next big deal, I guess, is 146. So, you excited?
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be a big, literally a big card. I got to say, watching the ads in the arena, I was just bummed not seeing Overeem on those ads.
I really wanted Overeem JDS. I really did.
Yeah, I really wanted that, but maybe sometime in the future, maybe not. I'm still happy to see. I'm still happy to see Mir take a crack at it.
Yeah,
and I think it's still gonna be a good fight. I think MMA Junkie is gonna be having a big gathering there at that weekend, so I'm gonna try and make it down. You're going, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're invited.
Awesome.
The audience at large is invited.
Cool. And so you got some big stories you're working on this week for Junkie?
I pretty much fallout from the event. There's actually Dana did like this 45-minute scrum after the press conference. Right. It was kind of a dull press conference and just not a lot to talk about. And then there was like 45 minutes of like covering everything. So we'll probably be doing follow-up from that.
Yeah.
And then we've got a week off. Hallelujah.
Right.
So I think I'm going to be putting on a sombrero or something.
Nice. Well, I'm on call for jury duty. I delayed it to this week because it was quiet, and so far I don't have to go in tomorrow. I got a call every day. So we'll see. Anyway, yeah. Steven, it's always great talking to you, and thank you for your input. Thank you for your hard work over there at Junkie, and we'll see you soon.
It's been too long. Let's do this more again.
Absolutely. Agreed. You have a good night.
All right, you too.
See ya.